Hello everyone and welcome back to this short series where we're going to show a couple of games by the candidates where they faced Magnus Carlsen in classical chess, and this is a beautiful game from 2008, so 14 years ago. It was played in the Linares tournament, or basically Morelia-Linares. It was half of the tournament was played in Morelia, half was played in Linares, where Rajabov faces Magnus Carlsen. Now it's you might say, okay, but that was so long ago, surely the games were not up to today's standard. This game was very much up to today's standard. As you'll see, it's simply brilliant, and well, that is required when you want to take down a player like Magnus. Even though this was in the days of Vichy, and it was in fact Vishwanathan Anand who won this tournament, half a point ahead of Magnus Carlsen. Still, the game is brilliant, and you guys will enjoy this one. So Rajabov has the white pieces, and he opens with e4. We have e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and the bishop to b5. Durui Lopez is on the board, and we have knight to f6 by Magnus. So young, but playing the Berlin defense. We have d3, bishop to c5, and now c3. Both players castle, and now you can see that, okay, maybe it comes as a surprise, but also it's 2008. Magnus is, what, 16 years old. The most common moves now are d6 and rook d8, but Magnus just strikes in the center right away with the d5, pawn going all the way, and now it's just a very sharp game. So knight b to d2, we have d captures on e4, and now there are some games where d captures on e4 was played, but Magnus plays, Rajabov plays knight captures on e4, and it is now already, as of move 8, that we have a completely new game. Surprising Magnus a little bit with this idea. So Magnus says, okay, I'm going to capture the knight. Rajabov happily offers a queen trade, and now Magnus plays queen to f6. He wants to put pressure on Rajabov's king side. Bishop is coming to g4, and then you can activate your rooks maybe with rook to d8 and rook to e8. So here, queen e2. We have bishop to g4, and now Rajabov says, all right, h3, let's trade queens this way. So okay, bishop captures, queen captures, and queen captures, g captures, and this is the position that you get. Now, of course, you don't want to allow bishop captures on c6, so Magnus goes knight to e7, and now pawn to f4, getting rid of the doubled f pawn. C6 chasing the bishop away, bishop to c4, and now e captures on f4. We have bishop captures on f4 and knight to g6, going after Rajabov's bishop here, bishop to g3, and rook f to e8, putting pressure on the pawn now, rook f to e1, and now rook a to d8. And you can see that black has no problems in this line. The rooks are now nicely placed on the d and d file. Rajabov does the same, rook to d1, and now Magnus trades and, well, grabs the e4 pawn here. Magnus has to figure out why Rajabov is offering a pawn. Obviously, it's for activity, but is it safe to do that? You could also maybe just start playing h5, h4, maybe king f8, try to bring the king closer to the center of the board, but he accepts the challenge. Rook captures on d1. We have rook captures, and now rook captures on e4, grabbing a pawn, threatening the bishop here. Now comes rook to d8 with check, knight to f8, and now bishop to d3, attacking the rook, and now rook e1 check. We have king to g2 and pawn to a5. You don't have to worry about the bishop captures on h7. Because even if king captures, you can't capture the knight. The knight is defended by the bishop, so in case you were wondering about that. So here, rook a8, Rajabov goes after the a pawn, and now rook to d1, attacking the bishop, and now bishop to c4. If you play bishop rook captures on a5 with the idea that, okay, I just grab a pawn and we trade bishops, there's the there's b6. I guess b4 is just always in my head. But yeah, b6 just defends the bishop, attacks the rook, and next move you can just capture the bishop. If bishop c2, we just play rook d2, no problem. So after rook to d1, we have bishop to c4 by Teimour, and now comes bishop to b6. Here, pawn to b6 would be safer, but Magnus plays bishop to b6, and this is what allows Rajabov to really make his next couple of moves count. He plays rook to b8, goes after the b7 pawn, and okay, Magnus brings the rook back. Rook to d7, defends the pawn, and now bishop to a6. Now the problem is if b captures on a6, which is kind of there really aren't all that many better moves. Carlsen's pawn structure on the queen side will be completely shattered. So okay, b captures on a6, rook captures on b6, and now all of these pawns are are incredibly weak. We have f6 and rook captures on a6. We have rook to d2, Magnus goes after the b2 pawn, and now again the strongest move ever, that is pawn to b4. So the problem is, if you capture on a2 now, we're just going to play rook captures on a5, or for a rook trade, and there's really not all that much you can play. You can't trade rooks because our passed a pawn will be unstoppable. If you go here, we just defend the c pawn, go after this pawn. We're going to have two connected passed pawns on the queen side. This will be completely winning for Rajabov. So here a captures on b4 instead. We have c captures, and now rook to b2. It seems that Magnus is able to stop the two pawns. Bishop to d6, now defending the pawn and also putting pressure on f8. If you allow rook to a8, it's game over. So knight to e6, and now pawn to a4, getting rid of the target here, and now you are ready to start pushing your passed a pawn. So here rook to c2, and we have pawn to a5. King to f7, Magnus starts bringing the king into the game. Now comes bishop to c5, a very nice idea that prevents the rook from moving, because okay, you can't capture the pawn right away, but for example, if knight captures, we're gonna play rook captures on c6, and now you can't move the knight, so we're gonna probably most likely win this with white. So instead, Magnus finds knight to f4 with check, king to f3, and now knight to d5, saying that, all right, now again, you can't really play this. If you play rook captures on c6, I can always play knight captures on b4, but there is one move that Magnus missed here, and it is the one that Rajabov played, basically the only move that wins the game for him. Feel free to pause the video here and try to spot this brilliancy while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this tricky idea, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to b6. That's the move. We offer the rook, and we move the rook away from the a file with such elegance, I would say, because now we're just gonna play rook b7 with check. So we're gonna win the 7th rank with tempo. We're gonna play pawn to a6, pawn to a7, and then our position will be completely winning. And even if you capture the rook, just a captures on b6, there's no stopping the pawn. You can play rook to d2, b7, rook to d8. It seems like you've stopped the pawn, but just bishop a7. Next move, we win the rook. It's game over. So after rook to b6, we have rook to c4 by Magnus. Now comes rook to b7. This comes with check. That's also a big problem. King to g6, now pawn to a6, rook to c3 check, king to g2, and now knight to f4 with check. And here, another great position where I could ask you to pause the video, and in fact, I will ask you to pause the video here. There are many possible squares you can go to with the king, but only one is winning. So pretty sure you know which one it is, but just in case, once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find the only winning move for Rajabov while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not playing king f1. That's just silly, or king h2 or king h1. But for those of you who found king to g1, congratulations, you are a true master of not blundering a completely winning game. So here, king to g1, and now there is really nothing more to be done here. Of course, king f1, you can see that it's mate in 1, rook to c1, because the knight covers these two squares. And if you go king to h1 or h2, you just allow silly perpetuals everywhere. Just rook captures on h3 check, king g1, knight to e2 check, and now after knight king to f1, we're just going to repeat knight f4. Now we're again threatening checkmate with rook to h1 as g2 and d2 are covered, and there is nothing. If you go king e1, you try to escape with your king. Now you will not be able to do it. Knight e3 check, king e2, knight captures here, and rook to a3 will come just in time, regardless of whether you capture on b or not. Rook to a3 just prevents the pawn from doing anything. You can push to a7, but it's never coming to a8. That's the problem. So the only move that wins is king to g1. I have no doubt all of you found this. And now we have knight captures on h3 with check, king to h2. Now there are no more checks, knight to f4, and here not even allowing some trickery with rook to h3. Rajabov just played bishop to e3, and he was in this position on move 43 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, and a brilliant victory in this hard played and hard fought endgame for Teimour Rajabov. Now you resign here because obviously after rook to a3, we're going to push the pawn to a7, and now it's defended by the bishop, so there's really no hope here. There are some tricks, of course. Knight d5. We're still gonna save the bishop, bishop c5, and if king f5, now we just play rook to b8, and our pawn will get promoted. If knight c7 to guard the a8 square, we're just gonna play rook c8, kick away the knight, and okay, knight b5. Let's say we're gonna promote the queen. Rook captures, and now we are up a full rook, of course, completely winning for Rajabov. So after bishop to e3, Magnus resigned, and a spectacular win for Teimour Rajabov in this brilliant game from 2008 in the Morelia-Linares tournament. And if you guys are interested about the standings, these are the standings of this event. You can see it was won by Viswanathan Anand, current world champion, or rather current world champion in 2008. Second place, Magnus Carlsen, only half a point behind Anand. You can see that he has 3 losses, one of them being this game against Rajabov, with 7.5 Topalov and Daronyan, with 7 Rajabov, Ivanchuk with 6.5, and with 5.5 Peter Leko and Alexei Shirov. So that's the game, a little bit of history for you guys to enjoy, and we are continuing our series of how our players fared against Magnus in their best classical games. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Martin Georg Paparik, Gaurav Mishra, Michael Kalber, Nagarjuna Pongoti, and Narendra Adala for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of their best games against the world champion, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, nothing else is happening in the chess world as we are waiting for the candidates tournament. Starts on June 16th, but the first game is on the 17th, so in case you missed that. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.